Good morning, viewers and listeners. Welcome to the NFL Draft Bible Tailgate Show. The date is, yes, 1/2/1. All right, 2021. All right, so as you have the second day of the year of 21, we are absolutely excited to be here with you today. Of course, as usual, I have my esteemed panel. Bottom right, my man David Turner, recovering on the IR. I got my man on the bottom left, John Murph, the VP of the Toronto Argonauts player personnel, and my man Ryan the Brain. I'm gonna call him Ryan the Brain. and Ryan runs our scouting department here at NFL Draft Bible, and we are excited to give you this Draft Bible tailgate show today. And of course, everything is winding down. As all the games are coming up, and not just NFL, but college is almost over. We just had a huge slate of games yesterday, and we're just excited to get back into this while we can. But yeah, serving you since 2002, and we're about to serve you right now. So let's just jump right in with the big man, John. Looks like we had a game last night with Georgia and Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl. What can you tell me about this game? It looks like, I know we had talked a little bit about it yesterday on the show, and I think I was pulling for Cincinnati to pull off the upset, what did I say, the Boise State Fiesta Bowl-ish, okay? And they couldn't pull it off, but it got close. Give me an idea about that game and what happened.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of everything. We had you with pulling the alarm, not all the way on, but I think you turned it like semi-on, the upset alert.
Yeah.
And then I had Georgia closer than it expected, which is what we got. And, well, Rick thought we were getting an SEC blowout. And, well, we all know what Rick's picks are like, so not surprising. Sorry you're not here, but your picks still suck. So, hey, that's a regular weekly thing. Ryan Roberts knows it. He can't believe that we have to listen and even list Rick's picks at this point. He's so far behind. It's almost like yesterday's afternoon game after this one. But I thought what you saw was, at a certain point, Georgia's O-line, D-line, and then the play of JT Daniels. And we mentioned what could be a difference maker here has been JT Daniels stepped on the field. And in these 4 games, he can now either declare and probably have a fairly decent grade in this draft or return to school. And Georgia is probably the second highest rated team in the SEC going into next year with a healthy JT Daniels under center. He's clearly the difference maker here. But I thought you got an excellent representation of what Cincinnati has become. They played that game yesterday minus James Wiggins, who'll be their highest rated defensive player drafted. They played without Dokes and still had an explosive running attack, especially in the first half against Georgia. And then they held up against Georgia at halftime. Georgia had, 18 yards rushing? So I think you saw the second half, the athletes on Georgia defensively give Cincinnati some trouble. They only had 1 first down, almost through a quarter of the, in the third quarter. So, I thought you saw Georgia, the overall talent kind of take over. And then, they luck into some plays down the stretch and Cincinnati can't make a play. And I think that's what you got. But, I mean, the first time that kid has ever attempted a game-winning field goal, and it's 50-plus yards, and he nails it. And you could see him really literally having a coming-to-Jesus moment on the sideline after he made the kick, because he was thanking everybody under the sun for that ball going through. So that was pretty awesome to see a kid that, wasn't, probably anybody on the roster thinking the game was going to come down to him. But I think if you're Cincinnati and you want to show how good of a football team you've become, watch the excitement of Georgia when they win that game, right? When you see the entire team and the head coach acting like they just won a real bowl game against a real team, to me, that's what Cincinnati can take away from yesterday, is not only how well you played in the first half. It's a 1-score game against a top 10 SEC opponent that was ranked at one time as high as, I think, 4 or 5, 5, I think. was as high as Georgia got. So if you're Cincinnati, and then if you're those other teams, UCF with your imaginary national championship, and the Chanticleers and UL and others, stand up today, Liberty, all those teams stand up today because, Cincinnati really, I think, gave all of those clubs a reason to say, like, hey, I'm next, or we could do the same if given the same opportunity. We'll look forward to next year's matchup. Who will that be, and how does that game go? And then I think the national audience will be more accepting of the time that we get an Alabama-Cincinnati, right, a Clemson versus, so I think we're starting to at least knock down some of those walls because that game was on at the right time yesterday, that most of the college football fans watched it and were surprised that every time they came back to it, it was still a game. And meanwhile, Northwestern's knocking the heck out of Auburn, and it's not a game. I think people were surprised that of those two, the real game for 4 quarters was Cincinnati, Georgia.
Absolutely right, man. And out of all the games outside of the Alabama game, it was a terrible day for the SEC. The SEC took a whooping, but I can tell you, you're right. When that kick went through, you saw Kirby Smart run out there just like the kids with belly showing and all. Belly shirt, belly was sticking out. I said, look at this. I said, he just won the national championship. And he was just relieved. And I said, that was probably, how they say coaches, they either in pain or there's relief. That was his relief, running out there and saying, oh my God, okay, at least it looks like we're going to win. I get it. But moving on, my man Ryan, looks like we had pretty much the game that went the way it was supposed to go yesterday. And of course, you being the Notre Dame correspondent for us on this panel, as always, played Alabama, number 1 team in the nation. And Alabama pretty much kind of showed what they did. And I think the game was, at the end there was a little closer than what people thought it would be. They thought that it would be a little bit worse of a beat. But what can you tell me about this game, and how are you going to end out this Notre Dame dream that did not come true?
Well, I was so excited to be able to talk about this game today because I'll be talking about it all week on Locked On Irish. It's going to be a fun week. If you haven't tuned in, you should tune in to Locked On Irish. Quick plug right there because you'll get some even more in-depth thoughts. So obviously, 31-14. I mean, defense came out very flat. It was 14-0 with a blink of the eye. Devonta Smith is Devonta Smith. He proved why he should be, in my opinion, the front runner for the Heisman Trophy. Offense had chances all night. And if I'm taking a real easy thing out of this, right, from Notre Dame's perspective, we had like a 2-play sequence in that first drive from Ian Book, right? Like comes to mind quickly. He's a little outside of structure. He turns, tries to throw a flat to Kyron Williams. The ball's behind him. They're moving the ball pretty well. It's -4 yards, 2nd and 14. The next play, they run just a little mesh concept. They have Javon McKinley wide open on a crosser. Air mails it, almost throws an interception. I'm like, okay, this is what night it's going to be here. And it's a shame because Notre Dame does have some talent offensively. They have Kyron Williams, Chris Tyree, true freshman running back. They have Michael Mayer, who was very good throughout most of the night, who are the real deal. The real big difference in this game is I think Notre Dame can compete in the trenches with Alabama. It was, hey, man, these skill position players from Alabama are just too much. These cornerbacks are just winning every one-on-one matchup against Notre Dame's outside receivers. There just isn't anything. Like, everyone wants to point at Mac Jones, right? Like, everyone wants to do it. Mac Jones is throwing spots. He's throwing screens, and Alabama's playmakers are just too athletic for Notre Dame's. The playmakers won the football game, and they showed why Devonta Smith, Najee Harris, they could do whatever they want, and they proved why they are potential first-round picks and potential very high first-round picks, especially in Devonta Smith's case. It wasn't anything flashy. It was just athletes being athletes. And now you're in this position with Brian Kelly because, usually a 10-win season, like Notre Dame has gotten to a point now where you expect to win 10-plus games. You expect to be in the playoff conversation. It's the same old conversation, though, with Brian Kelly after the game. The scoreboard doesn't quite reflect the type of game we have. It's we're getting closer. We're getting closer. We should look at Ian Book and marvel at what he did with 30 wins, even though, obviously no conference championship this year, no national championships. They have yet to win a playoff game. And at this point, it comes into a conversation, and a real conversation with Notre Dame is looks like you have hit your ceiling with Brian Kelly. There's no going past this ceiling. And for a historic program, although hasn't been entirely relevant since the late 80s, early 90s, for Notre Dame being a proud tradition, you have to begin to ask yourself, and you should probably ask yourself a couple years ago, but especially now, is this good enough? Being a 10-win team, making a playoff once in a while, but not actually competing with the teams like the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the Ohio States, those type of programs. Notre Dame is no longer a blue blood in college football. And at what point is it enough? And what point do you look and say, Brian Kelly, you've done a good job, but this isn't good enough for us? So that's kind of my big takeaway from that game. Quarterback position and especially head coaching, they just aren't good enough at Notre Dame right now.
What I saw as well, I think that they could use some speed on the outside. They got to threaten more because they have so many great tight ends that can work the middle of the field. Actually, their tight ends can actually, especially with Mayer, can play the outside. He's so advanced as a freshman tight end. He's going to be a number one draft pick, a first round draft pick when it's time for him to go. But that kid has an immense talent, and so do the other guys. But they had some more speed on the outside to threaten, to occupy some of those safeties so they can get some of these one-on-ones on the outside. I think that's something that Notre Dame, they missed this year in not having. But if not Kelly, Ryan, who do you think,
Give me Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer, just bring him in. I'm done at this point. I'm done. I know everyone's going to freak out because they're going to say, he's done some shady things at a couple different programs. That's not what the Notre Dame way. I'm tired of the Notre Dame way, man. I want to win a championship. So it's
Urban.
Ryan's going to sell his soul. He's going to sell his soul for a shiny trophy. Shocker.
I will sign it. I will sign it right now.
I'm going to get a shiny little trophy for the wall, and he wants to sell his soul to Urban Meyer.
David, watch it. We're gonna get to Florida soon here, buddy. Watch it out.
Bring it, baby. Bring it. This is. Hey, you're talking to the wrong guy if you think I'm gonna back down from this conversation.
Well, one more question. Second, who would be your second choice if not Urban Meyer? If you can get him, because he may have aspirations for the pros, but like a second name in college.
Second name. I don't really have a second name for you. I want Urban Meyer. He's the former Notre Dame assistant.
I think we just saw it. I think we just saw what yesterday afternoon. We just saw your chief competition out there and would make complete sense. Both of those guys in Cincinnati
Luke Fickell,
make complete sense.
I'd be good with it.
Look at the athletes that they're recruiting at Cincinnati. And when you look at that and say, where's that kid that came in, and for all intents purposes, he'll go out now and go win the Heisman Trophy the next 3 years in a row. I get it that he's a 4-star quarterback. Did anybody think that the water boy who came in when Book needed a couple of reps off was going out there and making any plays? Like, that's the kid that's our guy.
Well, that's not their guy. I mean, they have a kid named Tyler Buckner that's coming in as a freshman. But if history has told us anything, and I'm looking at Phil Dracovic now at Boston College, who I think is a very talented quarterback. Notre Dame's going to pick the more experienced guy, quote unquote, than the more talented player. And you talked, Big Law, about the lack of explosiveness and the lack of placement on the outside. People just kept highlighting Patrick Surtain. There's a couple plays that might have potentially been there, but the difference is, like, why are we throwing at Patrick Surtain when we don't have guys that threaten him? Notre Dame is notorious for that. Like, the grad transfer from Northwestern, Ben Skoranek, has had a good season for Notre Dame. He's a good football player. I think he can find a niche on the next level. Him and Javon McKinley, though, they're not threatening you outside. They have guys, and they've recruited guys like Jordan Johnson and Braden Lindsey, guys that have legitimate speed, that are high-ranking recruits at wide receiver position, but they're younger than those guys, so they're not going to play in the football game. That's just kind of the crux that's been Brian Kelly. He plays the safe. He never takes chances with some of the players that are going to play like Chris Tyree. Finally, yesterday, we get a little screen game from Notre Dame. At one point in the third quarter, it's 21-7. I'm like, okay, you score a touchdown here, man. Like, you're still in breath. Like, you still have a shot. You could still, get your team up and get them juiced up a little bit. Instead of putting Chris Tyree in the game for Kyron Williams, who I understand taking Kyron out because, man, he was carrying the load for almost the entirety of that football game. Instead of putting Chris Tyree in the football game again, Sebo Fleminster Jr., who, no disrespect to Sebo Fleminster, but he should not have been in that football game at any points. That should have been a Kyron Williams, Chris Tyree show, because Chris Tyree is that true freshman that is a legit 4-3 athlete, and that he needs to be in the football game because that's what Notre Dame lacks. But they went safe because that's just what Notre Dame tends to do under Brian Kelly.
Yeah, they could have.
So wait, you're saying Brian Kelly got out coached again?
I'm not talking. I'm
just happy that you're admitting Brian Kelly got coached again. Something I've been saying all year, that Brian Kelly's going to find a way to screw up the games, which they do. Usually find ways to screw up the game and make them closer than they need to be. He doesn't know how to blow teams out. He doesn't know how to truly use what he's got all the way around in his arsenal, because Brian Kelly is a bad coach, which I've been saying all year. You've been on me, bagging me, and now you're calling for his job and selling your soul to Urban Myers. When John brings up a great thing. Bringing Marcus Freeman over to be his DC would be a great addition now. Right, John is a great addition. But all year, Ryan's been saying Brian Kelly's okay.
There's the horn. The horn.
We're getting called back from the corners.
Guys. All right, I got the horn. Whenever we get out of the line, I got
time out, David.
Blow the horn. Okay. Yep. All right. So let's keep David rolling. David's on a roll right now. So the next game we have is Clemson. The really big surprise from this weekend was Clemson and Ohio State from last night. And that was in the All-State Sugar Bowl, and that was I was totally floored at what I was seeing. But then I kind of you got to sit back off of it and think about it. Maybe to me it looked like Ohio State was fresher. Not only did Clemson get out coached, but it seemed like they were the fresher team as well. What did you see on this game, David?
Well, I saw, honestly, you want to talk about a poor coaching job, and which I've never said about Dabo, but yesterday was a poor coaching job by Dabo and his staff. They came in, which looked like the same game plan they used last year, and thought they could put the same thing together, and Ohio State wasn't going to make any adjustments and just do the same thing. Plus, their secondary and their front linebackers were completely discombobulated. Even on the first series, look how their starting middle linebacker was trying to get people lined up. Thank God that one play Ohio State took a timeout and helped him, because he couldn't even get his linebackers in the right spot. He's yelling at the other guys and then Ohio State takes a timeout. I was like, again, Brian Day, why are you taking a timeout? You had these guys totally, lost in space here. That being said, he had them lost in space all night. I mean, their trips formation to the boundary side, which isn't a hard formation historically to cover, just gave Clemson fits all night. I think out of the 6 touchdown passes, 4 of them came from that formation. And there was no adjustments. There's lack of pressure. Ryan and I were talking before the show. An aggressive defensive coordinator for Clemson just did not dial up pressure last night. I was calling for it all night on Twitter, just like, come on, start sending 5, especially when you have a quarterback grabbing his ribs. It's like a boxing match. You got a quarterback grabbing his ribs, or a boxer, and you stop going to the body. It's like, keep going to the body. Just hit him. Just keep putting them on the turf. Just keep putting them on the turf. Even if you don't get sacks, you're hitting them, and you're loosening up those ribs, and whatever happened there, now you're getting them questioning being able to throw the ball. It's like they just felt for the kid, so they just backed off, and their front four couldn't get there on its own all night. So, again, it was a situation where Clemson, to me, looked completely unprepared. They did not look like the Clemson we've seen in the weeks past, where they look crisp, they look dialed in, they look focused. This was a team that almost looked like they were ready. They bought into the clippings. Their coach ranked Ohio State the 11th best team, and they bought into that. They weren't prepared. They thought they could roll in and just be the team and go. Whereas you take an Alabama that again, top team in the nation. They rolled in like a business trip and just handled their business. And, Notre Dame, like Ryan said, they jumped on Notre Dame early, and Notre Dame didn't get back in the game at all. Here's a situation where Clemson really should have rolled up on these guys, bowed up on them, and just, debowed them, but they didn't. And they got caught off guard. And, now we got an Ohio State, Notre Dame, or Ohio State, Alabama national championship game, which I think is what the broadcasters always wanted. That the stations got their tune-in top two teams for ratings. The ratings are going to be great for this show. But, is Ohio State with their 7 wins really able to flex on an Alabama that's, crisp and ready to go? I don't know.
That's going to be a high-scoring game, too. Ohio State, Alabama, that is going to be a high-scoring game.
Well, when I look at it, and like you were saying, sure, they ran a lot of trips formations, but in the box, I had to say Clemson had 0 fits. Their linebackers,
they were guessing. They were guessing.
Ohio State, I mean, they did a great job of quick snapping them as well, so that the guys, couldn't get lined up. And the linebackers, the fits were terrible. The defensive linemen were out of gaps. I was just sitting there like, this is not like a Clemson defense at all. And like you said, pressure couldn't get home. The guys and the receivers, all right, they kind of brought back some memories of like Joey Galloway, where they were blowing by cornerbacks, and just getting past them, getting deep. And I was like, where in the heck? I don't remember Ohio State burning people that badly, a team of this caliber, in a championship game like this.
Well, again, it wasn't just the receivers that were just outright faster. They weren't. The safeties were completely out of place all night. I mean, they didn't know where they were supposed to be. And if they just went to a zero formation, single high safety type look, I think Clemson would have been fine. Absolutely fine. Put up the pressure and break up the timing, but they didn't. And they were trying to run all these, runs off of quarters and too high safety and stuff, which confuse their own safeties.
Yeah,
so it's like
Nolan Turner.
Let's just roll them up and say our athletes are better than your athletes and see what happens here, But again, last year when they played them, all the zone bothered him. When you saw Fields this year against Northwestern and Indiana, the zone stuff bothered him. So therefore, he was just sticking with what bothered him instead of finally at one point just saying, "We're Clemson. We got better athletes. We're gonna send 6, and we're gonna line up and say, hey, pressure on the old school Raider style, right, John? We're going cover 0. We're sending 6, and if you beat us, you beat us. But if you don't, we're going to hit your quarterback, and your receivers aren't getting off the line. At some time, you got to draw that line in football, and you got to be tougher, stronger, and out physical your opponent. And a team like Clemson had the athletes and had the players to do it, but the coaches didn't make the call.
That's a big L for Clemson to take as well. That's a huge loss. And then, they're going to lose Trevor Lawrence and ATN as well. They're starting from scratch, really. And I'd be interested to see which level, how they're going to be in the ACC.
Well, they got 800 transfer kids in the portal, so feel free to start going shopping.
1,200, David.
1,200. Go shopping.
Oh, my God.
Because now that transfer portal is a place where you can see a Clemson go shopping and come back out just fine on the back end.
Yeah, by the way, the over-under is 76.
How? Wow.
76 is the over-under for Alabama, Ohio State.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so the game that I'm going to talk about, and I think I'm going to split it up a little bit. We're going to have Ryan Roberts and David Turner
ding, round 2. Let's go.
With me about this. Yeah, this is going to be round 2. Of course, this game is a game that was on as well, and this was the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, which the Cotton Bowl to me seems like it's tarnished. Cotton Bowl used to be a big deal to me when I was younger. I don't know, maybe why. I don't know why, but it seemed like it'd be a bigger game. But this game had Florida play Oklahoma with Spencer Rattler against Kyle Trask. Did not live up to the billing. You know what I was really interested in seeing is if Kyle Trask would play better. And I know he didn't have his top tight end, who's going to be a top 10 pick. Kyle picks. Oh, he's got him. Oh, David got to go number 4, huh? And then he's missing his receivers as well. So,
number 4, he missed 4 of his top 4 players on offense.
Yeah, and it just kind of came out the way that it did. Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler got going. Spencer Rattler had 3 touchdown passes, and of course, they also got the running game going with Ramondre Stevenson had 186 yards on the ground with a touchdown. They, Florida gave up 684 yards, which is unreal. That's an unreal number to give up. But, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to let Ryan Roberts have it, the first take on this game as well. Fill in a little bit for me and tell me what you think about this game, and I'll give David a shot after that.
Well, I know David wants to point to the 5 drop passes, the wide receivers that haven't played a ton of football, and that's fine. That's the context, and I completely am all for that. Like I said to him on Twitter, the 5 drops, I'm with you, man. That first interception on that out, that had nothing to do with those wide receivers, man. You saw that lollipop arm. You saw that interception in the end zone, underthrowing on the fade. Seeing the adverse between Spencer Rattler throwing a football and Kyle Trask throwing a football was the funniest thing in the world, man. Like, it is nothing. And David's going to say, like, oh, I'm a Trask hater. I like Trask more than most.
You
of Twitter,
are.
to be honest. No, I like Trask more than most of Twitter, to be honest. I am not nearly the hater that a lot of people are on him. But I will say, I think there's a cap to him. I think there is. I don't think that arm strength is good enough, man. Like, I think it's Jake Fromm going over again here, man. I think we saw with George last year where he starts falling a little bit. Now, I don't think Trask is going to hit like that type of fall in any way, but I think he's more a day 2 pick than a day 1 pick like people are trying to make him right now. There are limitations to his game, and I think that the couple interceptions that he threw, that had nothing to do with his timing. That had nothing to do with the wide receivers that are out there. That had something to do with, hey, man, that ball, every time he's going outside numbers, that thing floats on him. Down the field, it's okay, but there's not velocity in that arm. There's a cap to what he can be. That's why, and I know David's going to yell at me again. Here it goes, though. Oh, the great story, right? Back up in high school. Back up behind Derek King. Then he doesn't play for 4 years at Florida. Wow, what a great story. There is a reason both of those things happen. There is absolutely a reason. Floor is yours, David.
Here we go.
I just love how full of crap this guy is. So here we go. You're used to playing with these top 4 weapons that are just amazing players. And Tony, Pitts, like you said, Pitts is going to be a top 10, if not a top 5 pick. You're used to the timing that these speedsters have. You're used to playing, and again, you're used to throwing balls up and Grimes going over top of defenders and making plays. So you get used to throwing a ball and trusting your receiver is going to come down with it. Now he throws balls and the receivers don't come down with it, and Ryan's like, "Oh, it's horrible. Oh, he's a horrible quarterback." No, here's the deal. The running backs that are at Florida are underutilized. They have 2 very skilled running backs that they do not use at all. And even if you look at the game plan, it was like third and 4th down from like the 3-yard line, and they're running Trask on quarterback keepers. I mean, and not even just quarterback keepers up the middle. They're running on these draw things that I'm like, you got these skilled running backs sitting right behind you. Let's go jumbo and punch the ball in from the 3-yard line, but they don't. The game plan, Mullins made such bad decision-making throughout this whole game. You know, talk about coaching. This is where I think, I don't know, for me, coaching gets separated in playoffs and in bowl games. When you see coaches lose control of their team, like you saw Florida, that Florida just did not make the right calls. They didn't know how to turn the offense from a passing offense into a running offense, use what's there for them, which is it's a decent offensive line and two running backs that both have good balance, run, and explosion, and they can catch the ball out of the backfield. Both these guys, when given opportunities this year, have had significant games. They didn't use what was their strength of these 2 running backs. They just gave it to Trask and all these backup freshmen, sophomore wide receivers, and backup tight ends. Again, not a winning game plan. Go with what's good for you. Run the football. They didn't do it. Trask is going to get beat up on this one game, but look at the 40-something touchdown passes he threw this year. Look at his ability to lead the team to this game. And if this Gator had full teeth, if this Gator didn't have his teeth knocked out before the game by everybody opting out, this Gator would have ate up the Sooners.
Wow. Okay, I like to hear that from you. So, with that being said, do you think he's a first day a draft pick?
You know, I was talking to some friends of mine that are scouts this year, and most of them, the ones I respect the most have second-round grades on them. They have second-round grades on them. They won't be surprised if around 28, 32, someone takes a flyer on them because the draft class this year isn't that strong, and they don't know if teams will wait till next year to see if some of these kids come out, don't come out, what's going to happen. The question mark on college football of who's – and some people are anticipating 2022 to be a huge draft class, which a lot of talent, and so other people are saying because so many players are looking and focusing coming out in 2022, you'll get some surprises and they'll fall into the 2023 class because the numbers will be high. Agents won't be paying for as much training. Just like this year, a lot of agents aren't offering training because they can't afford it from what happened in the 2020 draft class. So therefore, you're going to see rare timing opportunities at 2022. So someone can take a flyer on him late in the first round, but I think he'll be a solid second-round pick for somebody. And don't forget, Drew Brees was a second-round pick.
That's right. Well, there's going to be an avalanche of talent in the next couple years coming out where there's so many kids. Would you see them maybe expanding the draft? Because there's going to be so many draft picks from kids opting out and pushing their eligibility back. I just see a ton of kids coming out at one time. It'll be a lot of talent, like you said, maybe next year or the year after. But, we'll see how all that goes. But it's going to be interesting to see if these guys, how well they do on the next level and where they land. So let's get back to it. And my man John Murph, looks like we had the Outback Bowl go off yesterday when we had Ole Miss Ole Miss and Indiana, one of the bowl games that are left in the year. What can you tell me about this Ole Miss team against Indiana, who had a surprising resurgence of their football program? We're not just talking basketball in the wintertime when we're talking Indiana. We're talking football.
Right. So, and here's a game that I think, again, one team for sure wants to be there in Indiana. They got overlooked in their mind. They thought they would get into a bigger bowl game. They didn't. Ole Miss is sort of the opponent for this matchup, and good on Kiffin. At least we know one thing. They have the offense going the right way, but they have zero defense. And zero, we mean like, it doesn't matter who they have on the field. This is going to be at least 40 for Indiana, on this side. The other thing is we're playing that game down in Raymond James, and Indiana has over 20 guys from Florida on their roster. So this is a homecoming, for these guys. Indiana also has about 20 interceptions defensively on the season, which is one of the big critical factors of what's made them such a balanced team, even without their starting quarterback, being out down the stretch. So to me, they have playmakers. Matt Corral on Ole Miss is exciting to watch, but as we mentioned, he's exciting for both teams. He's going to make plays for both teams. And it wouldn't be surprising today to see him score 3 or 4 touchdowns, turn the ball over 3 or 4 times. And I think that this is an Indiana win. They go 7-1 and really have put themselves on the map now. And it'll be really interesting to see. You got Notre Dame, who needs a D coordinator, and you got Indiana, who needs a D coordinator. Which guys become, the real candidates for these jobs in the coming weeks, as that'll be a big difference maker moving forward, both in the recruiting, but also in what kind of ability do they have to sustain, what both of those two teams have done. You're right out there in the Midwest. A lot of defense being played at Northwestern, Indiana, Notre Dame, Cincinnati, but the right D coordinator, as we've seen, can change a lot of elements really quick. And the wrong defensive coordinator can change things in a hurry too, as we saw in Baton Rouge, this past year.
If you guys can hear me, give me a thumbs up. All right, very cool. So let's do this. Let's keep going. Let's get into the next game here, Ryan. We got the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl with North Carolina State and Kentucky getting at it. And North Carolina State won't have Aleem McNeil, which is, in my opinion, top 2 defensive tackles coming out this year. I seen him play live. The kid was amazing. And what can you tell me about this game coming up today?
Well, he was the first guy I wanted to mention because not having Aleem, that's probably the best draft prospect on each side of the football today in regards to NC State and Kentucky. A few guys that we definitely want to keep an eye on if you're NC State. Now, Bailey Hockman is not the most impressive quarterback of all time, but when Devin Leary went down, he was able to right the ship and do enough offensively to keep them afloat a little bit. They have a couple wide receiver and tight ends there in Emeka Emezi, who's kind of fits that Kelvin Harmon type of role for NC State that we saw a couple years ago. He's not incredibly fast, he's not incredibly flexible, but he's that big body pass catcher that can do some things at 6'3 plus. Kerry Angeline, the tight end transfer from USC from a couple years ago, all 6'7" of them. He's kind of that seam buster. So they do have a couple players offensively to keep an eye on. And then we have on the defensive side of the football, the best player with Aleem McNeil out of the game would have to be Peyton Wilson, who's had a really nice season. Middle linebackers at over 100 tackles, over 10 tackles for loss. He's been a really dynamic weapon for that NC State defense. And then on Kentucky, it's just kind of been a slow burn. Terry Wilson's not the most dynamic quarterback of all time, but he's got that dual threat aspect to him. Christopher Rodriguez has had a nice game. I mean, a nice season overall as the main runner there. But their offensive line is probably where you really want to keep your eyes on for this game because the guys that get the notoriety, Drake Jackson at center, who's a good football player, Landon Young, who's played a ton of football at left tackle, probably the best offensive lineman, though, on Kentucky, and maybe even in draft circles, is Darian Kennard, who's their right tackle, who some people think might move inside at the next level. And then you have on defense a couple of guys, Jamar Watson, who's actually the all-time leading sacker right now in the SEC, current active member of the SEC in sacks at outside linebacker and their odd man front. And then they have guys like Quentin Bohanna, who's all 360 pounds of him at nose guard. Jamin Davis, linebacker, who's been very productive this year, and Yusuf Corker. I think Kentucky takes this one. But I think it is a fun matchup with some guys to watch, but it's a little more of an under-the-radar type of bowl matchup as far as NFL draft is concerned.
Thank you for that. So we got my man David Turner. We got the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl today, and of course the Fiesta Bowl is something that I've always liked to try to get out there to that side of the world where he's at. And looks like we got Oregon and Iowa State going at it. Iowa State being a surprise team, and Oregon typically maybe not quite as of late, but has been a recently good, relatively good program. What can you tell me about this Ohio and Iowa State game today?
Well, here's the deal. Iowa State's been doing a great job over there with, underneath Matt Campbell, their head coach. He's been for years building up this great program and this the Cyclones no one really gave weight to, but now they think they just won their most wins ever in division history with 8 conference wins. This is their first big bowl game that they're going to here in Arizona, just up the street. I think it's an exciting time for Iowa. They're ranked 10th in the country, but we're seeing an Oregon Duck team that is ginning and gelled so well. It beat down a quality USC team there in the Pac-12 championship game. So this one's going to be I think a hard-fought battle. The Ducks are used to being here. But, for me, I really like, as everybody knows, the Iowa State running back Bryce Hall and their quarterback in Brock Purdy, who I believe is an Arizona kid. So, I mean, this is a homecoming for him. I look for him to have a really big game. Bryce Hall, to me, is going to be a talented running back, not only at this level and in this game today, but at the next level. So, it's going to be fun to watch him play a little bit here. Linebackers, like Mike Rose and stuff, is defensive player of the year, respectively, really. So, we got to see him step up, make plays again this year, right here, in the game. But I think ultimately I'm not going to, this Keon Thodorix or whatever his name is, Ryan, you could help me with that.
Avon Thibodeau.
Yeah, there you go. That Thibodeau kid, he's a man now. He's a dude.
What did you just say? What was that?
I said he's a man. He's a dude.
What was the pronunciation?
Oh God, I have no idea. You know I'm gonna butcher it. Every like for 5 weeks, you guys have given me Oregon. You think I would learn how to predict these names or say these names? Because I talk about the same guys every week. They're D tackles and Thibodeau, but I don't. It's just me. I'm a numbers and a jersey number guy, so that's just the way it goes. But Thibodeau is a man. It's gonna be hard for Iowa State to get, to not to block him. He's going to get after it. And I really think at the end of the day, like we saw Georgia yesterday outlast Cincinnati, you're going to see Oregon outlast and put it down on Iowa State here at the end of at the end of this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I want to see some of these athletes get out there, and some of these lesser known players, not from a blue blood, do well, as well. So, game I'm going to talk about as well as we have Texas A&M and Kellen Mond going against the man, and I think this guy, when it's time for him to come out, Sam Howell from North Carolina, I think the guy has some potential to be a top or first round pick. I'm not sure how high in the first round, but the kid shows that he could make every throw. They're putting up enormous numbers. He has 27 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. But maybe the real story and the real the engine behind this team is the running backs. Even though they're throwing for a lot of yards, putting up a lot of touchdowns, passing, the running backs. You got 2 running backs over 1,100 yards. And Javonte Williams, I believe he declared for the draft. And then you got Michael Carter as well. Javonte Williams leads the world in broken tackles. The guy had 19 rushing touchdowns. All right. And Michael Carter had 9 as well. But I just think both of them are going to be good pro backs. I just think Javonte Williams' style, the breaking tackles element of his game is really what elevates you in the your vision. I think in my evaluation, the vision and the way you know how to break tackles and not take a square hit, I think is going to propel him. I think he'll be the better pro than Michael. And then of course you got De'Ami Brown, the deep threat, averaging 20 yards of reception and has 8 touchdowns this year and over 1,000 yards receiving. There's just too much juice for Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond is more of your true dual threat quarterback. He can run the ball. He has a great running back behind him, Isaiah Spiller, 7 touchdowns, almost at 1,000 yards. He has 986 right now. I think he's going to get there, but you think about his receivers. It's kind of like, who are his receivers? He typically throws to Jalen Windemeyer, who is a nice tight end, 45 receptions, 502 yards, 2 touchdowns. 6 touchdowns. Then he also has Aeneas Smith, who is a running back who catches the ball. So you really want to challenge him, maybe make him throw passes to the outside. That means you really got to keep him in the box, attack the mesh point, and challenge him to make throws on the outside. Seems like Kellen does really well throwing the ball down the middle of the field. And then you're North Carolina, which their defense has been atrocious. You want to see if he can make throws on the outside and challenge him that way and slow him up just a little bit, because that's all you need, because this North Carolina team can get the ball down the field, get it quickly. Then they can also beat you up, grind you up, have a huge offensive line with these 2 running backs. I'm interested to see how this game comes out. Any of you guys got anything you want to say about that game as well? That's going to be entertaining. It's at 8 o'clock tonight.
North Carolina is going to get worked.
Whoa.
I mean, they have nobody, and Texas A&M.
It's like John said in the chat. Yeah, John said in the chat, it's an opt-out bowl for North Carolina. I don't know who's lining up. Half those players, I think you said, aren't even going to show up tonight. They're going to be in sweatpants. So, I think North Carolina is A&M is a team that I like.
I think the biggest problem, beside the offensive guys, is no Chaz Surratt is huge.
Yeah,
that's
the run defense is bad with them, so imagine it without him.
Yeah, no Chaz Surratt.
Yeah.
The lead now. Hey, it opens the door for the 2 freshmen and a junior running back to play, but you got basically 2,500 yards of offense sitting out, and your number 1 receiver. That's a game changer for North Carolina. And then I think the thing on Texas A&M side is, Yeah, Kellen Mond's one score away. I think he's one offensive touchdown away from tying or breaking Manziel's record for total touchdowns. But when you look, if you're an A&M fan, now you're losing Kellen Mond in all likelihood, to the NFL or CFL. Sorry, Kellen Mond. But 30 of your 36 touchdowns on the season have been scored by underclassmen at A&M. I mean, that's a huge sign for what's to come. And I think A&M is one of those teams that this weekend and early next week, when the recruiting and the guys are signing, their next signing period is going to do wonders for their class, for their recruiting class. They've doubled down, and Jalen Windemeyer's got a tight end from his high school that's likely to sign with A&M, which will give him double the package there. And much like North Carolina this afternoon, they will get knocked out of this program just like Big Law.
Just like Big Law. But I think you're right. I think A&M was one of the teams that I actually would have liked to seen in the top 4, to be honest with you. I know Ryan didn't like that pick at all, but I liked what I saw out of A&M all season this year, and I would have much rather seen them in the top 4 over a team like, I don't know, the Golden Domers.
Yeah, so that team up north.
I still think yesterday would have been a similar outcome. They may have been able to run a little more with Spiller, potentially, but they didn't have the weapons. They didn't make as much maybe.
Well, I think you would have seen the pollsters, would have wound up putting Alabama versus Ohio State in round 1 and Clemson versus A&M. So we could have got the Clemson Notre Dame finale at the second round, and you would have had Ohio State go battle with Alabama first. I think that's the way the pollsters would have ranked them. So this way, we got it. But again, we couldn't do that because again, we had to, have Notre Dame in the mix, which is just ridiculous.
Texas A&M was never going to jump to 3 though over Ohio State. That was never going to happen.
Well, Ohio State should honestly, and my feelings on this from Unmuzzles of Mavs Sports Take. I don't think Ohio State looked good. They look fresh, straight off their whole 5-win season or whatever they've had. I mean, they shouldn't even have been in the damn mix because they break the rules to get them there. And so it's just like, it's like, Drago, go, okay, you knocked out 2 guys, now you get to fight Rocky. It's like, good God, like you haven't built up the resume to be there yet, but yet we're going to let you be there. So whatever, all your Ohio State people keep hating me in the chat. I know you are, but at the end of the day, you shouldn't have been there. They broke all the rules for you to get there.
David, you're a troll. You're just a troll, dude.
Oh, I get called that the other day. I had to ask you what that meant because I had no idea. I'm too old for that stuff.
Thank you for that comment, Dabo Turner.
You're welcome.
Well, I can tell you one thing. We'll see.
Anytime.
This is a surprising week of college football as usual. But let's do this. Let's get into our next segment, which is the Under the Radar segment. And Ryan Roberts, who is your Under the Radar player of the week?
Yeah, I mean it's not super under the radar, but I was watching this Virginia Tech film over the last couple of days, just offense, just get my final notes and thoughts on Christian Darrisaw, the left tackle. Khalil Herbert's just a guy, man. I can't get enough of him. Every time I watch him, I just get more and more excited about Khalil Herbert, the running back, the transfer from Kansas, who had an excellent year this year for Virginia Tech. Really impressed. But another guy that popped off the film of their offense, who I don't think is going to be a 2021 NFL draft guy because I just haven't heard any buzz, and I know he's draft eligible technically. Just want to throw his name out there as left guard, Lecitus Smith, who is listed at like 6'3", 320, big frame. Watching him and Darrisaw work combos to the second level was some of the highlight of my week as far as watching game film. He was really impressive, got to the second level with ease, did a great job cutting off flow from the front side on inside zone. There was a lot of fun things to watch with Lecitus Smith, who's a guy that doesn't get talked about much on that Virginia Tech offensive line because they got, obviously, Darrisaw, Brock Hoffman, who's a good story at center, who's a transfer from Coastal Carolina that did not win his appeal last year, but's had a good solid year at center. So Lecitus Smith, whether it's 2021 or 2022, I think he's a pretty interesting guard prospect that I hadn't really known too much about, and I don't think anybody's really talked too much about. But I think that we're starting to see as we watch more Virginia Tech film, Christian Darrisaw is not the only talented player on that offensive line. Lucita Smith, left guard, is also talented in his own right.
Is he more of a run blocking specialist or a pass blocking specialist, or is he just a good mix of both? Because I know they had a great running game, with the running back there. And, what do you think?
So, I mean, they're a little tough for interior offensive line play just because everything works off of that zone action. So, like, even their RPO game, like, everything is offensive linemen getting downhill. There's not a bunch of traditional pass sets, so it's a little bit of tough of an evaluation. But I felt, just moving to the second level, moving laterally, I thought he was a pretty solid mover. So I would think that he is a very solid pass blocker from everything I've seen. But I think that what Virginia Tech highlights as far as how they play football in that zone-based scheme off of the read, the run blocking aspect is definitely something, working combos to the second level, that really stands out with him.
Yeah, it's a lot on the next level as well. Now moving on to my man DT, Dave Turner. So tell me, you're under the radar player of the week.
Well, here I got to take this time and eat a little crow, just a little bit, because yesterday on Twitter I was giving it to Fields a little bit because I'm very disappointed. Everybody knows when they watch us, listen to Mass Sports Take, I had Fields up there with Trevor Lawrence early in the season. I thought this guy was going to press Trevor Lawrence to be the top pick overall, and then he ran into a lot of speed bumps and bruises through the 5 games they played. So I was just like, you know what are we really going to get? Yesterday's the offensive player I thought we would have gotten all season long. And I think Fields has gotten beat up a lot this season. But again, I don't think what I thought we were going to get coming into this season is in what we got out of Fields this year. It doesn't culminate in the game we saw from him yesterday. Yesterday was a game I thought this young man could have every single week in and week out, and we saw it. Hopefully we see a similar game against Alabama for him so he could drive his stock back up. Right now, if you digest his senior season of playing, you're not going to see the second or first pick overall. He's not a guy who's in the Heisman running for a reason. He didn't have a complete season this year. But I do like the young man. I think he has a lot of arm talent and capability. Toughness yesterday was something that was off the charts. To take that hit, stay in the game, keep playing. It reminded me of when Matthew Stafford separated his shoulder and threw that touchdown back in 2009 or something like that. And then came out of the game and it was literally hanging off him. This young man did a great job leading his team in a game that nobody thought they were going to win. Nobody thought they were going to be in relevant. He threw 6 touchdown passes, a lot of them over 40, or 3 of them over 40 yards. So again, is he under the radar? No, but I think he took a beating a lot this week, and he'll take a beating in the draft charts a little bit for his season. And I really just wanted to say, hey, to all you people on Twitter, I'm not a hater. I'm disappointed in what I saw from Fields this year. He was a player that I was really high on coming in and thought he had a bad year for him. So there you go for all my Twitter people. I'm eating a little crow for you this morning.
Yeah, put it on the grill. Put that crow on the grill. Asian spice on it, as John would say. Hey, getting it to my buddy John. Who is your under the radar player of the week, buddy?
Well, David's going to like this one because it's somebody who harkens back to our Raider days. With no Chaz Surratt playing today for North Carolina, the replacement for him is going to be no other than Eugene Asante.
Oh, boy.
Who is Larry Asante's little brother.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so Eugene Asante, all 6 tackles that he has as a sophomore, now gets the big boy job of having to play in the middle of that defense today for North Carolina. So his brother, Larry Asante, played at Nebraska, was a draft pick, I believe, of the Cleveland Browns, and then made his way to the Raiders around 2013, 14, 15 kind of range there. So it'll be good to see him get an opportunity. Here's a bowl game with, for every opt-out, it gives a young guy, an opportunity to play. And here's a big opportunity, for him to get a start against A&M and potentially propel himself into a starting job going into spring drills next year. So watch out for that today. That is Larry Asante's little brother, also wearing number 7, which I think might have been Larry's number. So kind of an interesting, little connection there, with a former brother played in the NFL. Big shoes to fill, playing in place of Chaz Surratt today. And I think Ira Spiller and Mr. Asante will be meeting early and often during the game today. So just a kind of under the radar guy playing for North Carolina today. And very interesting that Mac Brown, former Texas coach, back at North Carolina, is playing a bowl game against Texas A&M. So, can never get too far away from old rivalries. There is back in the day when Mac was at Texas and Texas A&M. Hey, for you kids out there, Texas and Texas A&M actually used to play football against each other.
Yeah. Hated
Ryan Roberts, did you know that?
I'm not listening, John. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No shocker there. No surprise. Ryan's tuned out. Yeah, he's on the tweet. He's on the Tweeterverse. He's over there Tweeterversing.
Answering a text. Sorry, David. Go ahead.
And as our football universe starts to wind down, we have some bowl games next day or so here that's gonna play out. Then we're having the championship game next Monday coming up. Was it Monday or Tuesday, guys? The championship game. I think it's a Monday that they play, and then
I think it's usually Monday night.
Okay, and then after that, we have to look forward to the draft and the process for that, combines and all that if they have them, and pro days if they have them. We'll keep you guys up to date on all that stuff. But then we got the FCS coming up, so that'll give us a little bit more and I think it'll be cool to do the smaller schools, because a lot of folks don't necessarily follow the smaller schools unless you're in one of those towns of those smaller schools, and you'll follow it. So it'll be cool. You'll get some premium information from us on smaller school athletes and teams. So I think that's going to give us a little bit of a different feel from the ground up, and then of course also the draft going on. So any parting shots? I'll start with you, Ryan. Parting shots for today.
Yeah, tomorrow again, 8:00 Eastern time, inside the NFL draft inside the NFL draft process. If any player, agent, parents is struggling with decision making during this crazy season, crazy off season and draft process is about to be upon us, 8:00 Eastern time, NFL Draft Bible is hosting it. That it will be actually hosted by Neil Stratton from Inside the League. David Turner and others will be a part of the event, some agent perspective, some former scouting perspective, just giving you everything you kind of need to know, trying to navigate this tough season. So make sure to check out that. You can sign up at NFLDraftBible.com. I know there's limited time. I think we have like 40 or 50 people already signed up. Zoom calls, you can go up to 100, I think. So make sure that you RSVP for that event again tomorrow, Sunday, 8:00 Eastern time, if you need any information about the draft process, especially in this turbulent season.
I may have to catch that in the archives because I got Washington and Philly going on at the late game. So I'm going to have to kind of check that out. Good day, shaking his head. But but don't forget, guys, you can always go back and talking about the archives, go back and check out the Scout School programs from the NFL Draft Bible. Very informative way to educate yourself on anything when it comes to football, pro level, college level, coaching level, all of it. Just get to it, check it out. You'll leave a better football mind for it. My man David Turner, what you got for me, man, in your parting shots this week?
Like Ryan said, I'll be part of this panel tomorrow night where we're talking about the NFL draft process and how it's all lining up and the ins and outs of the troubleshooting that we see and forecast right now with pro days and combine measurables, as well as how to handle the business side of it, what's the appropriate way to be contacting these teams, and how to be addressing everybody right now, because it's going to be a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of over the internet type situations where you need to be able to market and profit from that kind of communication. So we'll get into that tomorrow night as well. I just want to thank everybody on the panel. I hope everybody has a great, happy new year, because 2020 is officially in the books. Let's not carry the negativity into 2021. Let's keep it positive, Ryan, and everybody else on the panel. And again, if you haven't heard Ryan and I, we've already turned the chapter this week's Mav Sports Take. We went and we started looking at the draft process from the NFC teams, top of the NFL draft. What are they going to do at quarterback? How are they going to address their quarterback position for sustained success? So we took the top 8 teams in the NFL draft, already discussed that. This coming week, we're going to drop our knowledge on the AFC teams and discuss the most important part of the process, the quarterback evaluations, and we'll put that forward coming up. So we will be attacking the draft process a lot on Mav Sports Take between now and draft.
My man, thank you for that, David. And moving on, my man John, what is your parting shot for this week?
Well, he's not with us today, so it's hard to take too hard of a shot at him. But I am comfortably waiting for tomorrow, and one division for sure that'll be locked up before the Eagles-Redskins is the factor that the regular season title will remain right here, Rick. Regular season title for picks will be right here. Maybe I'll let you pick one up if you take the Pats over the Jets, or maybe I'll even let you take the Jets. But one thing for sure is that double-digit lead ain't going nowhere anytime soon.
Well, we appreciate that, man. Those picks, man, you guys are critical on those picks, man. That's fun. Week in, week out. Hey, keep grinding with it. But I can tell you this. We really appreciate you guys tuning in week in and week out. We can't do it without you guys. And we'll just keep rocking. Like I said earlier, we got FCS coming up. We got more draft following some of the players that are declaring, some kids that are possibly staying. Remember, I guess if you got the loan money, if you run out of scholarships, you can come back next year and play. That's what the NCAA is telling us. So, we'll keep everybody up to date on some players that are going, some guys that are staying. And, we can go off the air here, but if we want to continue that CFL talk, we can do that as well.
Yeah, we can't wait to find out how much better the SWAC is than the MEAC, but that's for a later date.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. But we got to thank you guys for viewing us, and have a happy new year. First show of the year. Knocked it out of the park. Had some technical difficulties, but we got through it. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, my panel, for being great guys, inviting me in, and we continue in this this love fest going when it comes to football. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace. This is